Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings. We do still have rain, snow and ice warnings issued, with those wintry warnings issued mostly for Scotland. We'll run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature, as we're going to see quite oscillating temperatures over the course of the next 5 days, with repeated bouts of slightly cooler air and slightly milder air as well, generally keeping us around average, so maybe slightly above average, with the coldest conditions inevitably in the north and the mildest conditions in the south. It's going to remain unsettled with a lot of precipitation around, but there will be drier days here or there, but will never be too far away from the next weather system or next batch of instability causing showers. We'll then have a look at the longer range models, look at the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles. It's looking likely as we head into the first week of January, cooler polar maritime air masses look likely to dominate. So come towards next weekend, that's when they're really going to dominate. Obviously, sort of all northwesterly winds, where the air is originating from the Arctic, from Greenland and northern Canada, but taking a very long sea track, so it does get warmed up, but still is colder than average, still is generally cold, giving some wintry hazards over higher ground in Scotland and maybe even to low-lying areas at times in elsewhere as well. So we'll have a look at that in detail, and if you are very much interested to see when the potential for colder weather or proper cold weather could return, we are seeing hints of perhaps some amplification in the jet stream from some of the runs today, which could mean more northerlies, things like that to come in. But again, that's not locked in cold. But do check out a YouTube short that I did post earlier today, where we are seeing the potential for a real sudden stratospheric warming coming towards the middle of the month. We have been hinting at it over the last few days, and today from the GFS morning runs, we've seen some significant warming that could be starting to look at splitting the polar vortex. And of course, that could put a real spanner in the works for the end of January and for the rest of winter through February and March, if that did come off. So do check out that YouTube short. Go onto the channel page and have a look at that if you are interested. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. And after you start on the live radar, you can see it's a very unsettled day with low pressure climbing up from the south. We've got big area of precipitation, a bit of line convection within it here down towards the southwest. You can see these lines of orange and yellows indicating torrential rain and gusty winds. Most areas, though, is just that sort of moderate to heavy rainfall, and it will slowly spread northwards through the rest of today into the evening, and then there looks likely to be setting up a band of precipitation through northern England, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, on its leading edge, so north of it to be falling as snow. Now we are seeing a bit of snow here so far. This will likely remain over the higher ground, but could come to low-lying areas as well when more intense precipitation moves in. Could see a bit of evaporative cooling, as it is quite marginal for moderate to low-lying areas. But we do have snow warnings issued, and there could be some disruption from that. As the weather front heads northwards, we do have a very strong contrast in temperatures at the moment, with some areas in Scotland hovering around freezing, some areas in the far south around 13-14 degrees, so about a 15-degree temperature range from northern Scotland to southern England. So big temperature contrast, and that's what's really fueling this low pressure and all this precipitation. Now, but on the temperatures, as of around 3 p.m, you can see how it is very cold still in Scotland, but really quite mild across most of Europe and most of England and Wales. Europe's incredibly mild at the moment, around 17, 18 degrees as we head into the new year. Wouldn't even be surprised to see 20 degrees across parts of northern Spain and southern France, with a bit of a Föhn effect going on there over the Spanish mountains. So yeah, very, very mild across most of Western Europe, most of England and Wales. Very mild as well, temperatures around that 10 to 12 degree mark, maybe slightly higher, 13, 14 in a few areas, but Scotland still lingering onto that cold, or very cold air really, and we're seeing temperatures widely mid to low single digits, if not towards freezing, and that will continue over the coming days as we continue to see low pressure systems rattling off the Atlantic, giving those oscillating air masses quite widely, but most of the time Scotland will be in relatively cold air. So wintry hazards will remain over the course of the next few days and probably the next few weeks as well. Again, not too unusual, but of course we have seen some winters over the past few years where that milder air has dominated Scotland as well. It does look likely over the course of the next week or two cold air will remain and will be pretty good for the Scottish mountains and hills or ski slopes if you are planning on doing anything up in Scotland. If you do have a look at the weather warnings, you can see that we do have a rain warning issued for southwest England at the moment from midnight last night until 9 p.m. today. Heavy rain is expected to bring some surface water flooding and travel disruption. As we saw on the live radar a minute ago, you've got a bit of line convection there, which is probably another reason why we have this warning. And you can see 10 millimetres an hour, ground already saturated. There could be some surface water flooding, perhaps even some river flooding in places as well. So you have some repeated rain warnings in the southwest, high likelihood lower end of the impact matrix. If we head northwards, we have a snow warning across southern Scotland, again over the higher ground from 10 p.m. this evening until 10 a.m. tomorrow. Spells of snow, mainly over hills and mountains, may cause some travel disruption. Some sleet and snow may fall down to around 100 metres at times. Again, that's because of evaporative cooling, where the air cools down as precipitation falls through it and it evaporates, uses up energy, and in consequence then reduces the temperature and allows more wintry precipitation to fall to low-lying areas. The bulk of the accumulations, though, will be above 200 metres, because of course you need the ground temperatures to be below freezing as well. So again, a lot of precipitation needed for that to happen, most likely over 200 metres plus, where 2 to 5 centimetres of snow is likely for some, and perhaps 10 centimetres on the highest routes. Head further northwards, we do have a yellow ice warning quite widely through northern Scotland and the Northern Isles from 6 p.m. this evening until 11 a.m. Again, wintry showers and generally temperatures below freezing, meaning anything that's on the ground, any moisture will freeze, and we could see some slippery surfaces. And again, we have a snow warning issued from 6 a.m. today until 3 p.m. and that again is for sleet and snow currently affecting northern Scotland. Again, mostly showers, and it's turning lighter and patchy, so pretty much over by the time you're watching this. This warning will have subsided. Again, 2 to 5 centimetres of snow may accumulate even to low-lying areas, and maybe 10 to 15 centimetres high likelihood lower end of the impact. And if we look to Sunday, we have a more widespread snow warning through central and eastern Scotland from 3 a.m. tomorrow until midday tomorrow, as that snow that's in southern Scotland right now and over the course of the next few hours spreads northwards. Again, perhaps 100 metres, a bit of snow, 200 metres, 2 to 5 centimetres, perhaps more snow higher, and then we've still got that widespread ice warning issued as well. Now, if you go over to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days, now you can see that precipitation this afternoon is heading through most of England at the moment. A bit of wintriness across Scotland, but nothing too much yet. That precipitation will really organise into a big band around 7, 8 p.m. this evening as it heads northwards, giving significant snowfall over the high ground of southern Scotland and very heavy rain elsewhere. Through the early hours of 1st of January into 2023, it's going to be a very soggy start for many, but elsewhere it could be quite dry. So if you are out doing fireworks tonight in perhaps parts of England and Wales, it should be hopefully dry. The ground will be very saturated, probably be quite muddy and still a bit blustery out there, but it most likely will be relatively dry in terms of precipitation falling out of the sky. Precipitation across Scotland, though, will continue to head northwards, snow widely over higher routes and perhaps even to low-lying areas overnight. Most of Scotland will probably be waking up to some sort of precipitation, whether it's snow over the higher ground or rain, and there could actually be some disruptive conditions around for some as well. Now, as we head through the 1st of January, the new year, snow will continue over the high ground of Scotland, and elsewhere it will be generally cloudy. There will be patches of clearer skies, and there'll still be quite a few showers around. So if you're planning to get out and walk tomorrow, should be some good conditions around, but you could also get trapped under some horrible cloud and maybe a few showers as well. But they're not that widespread, as you can see, and they're mostly light as well. As we head through the evening into the 2nd of January, we actually see clearer skies take over and could be a bit of a frost as we are briefly under a ridge of higher pressure with colder air trapped underneath it. As we head through Monday afternoon, into Bank Holiday Monday, it is quite a pleasant day. If you are planning to do anything over the course of this weekend, Monday is the best day. It will be chilly, generally cold air involved, but it's pretty much bone dry and very, very clear skies for many as well. However, As we head through the rest of the week, it's likely precipitation will return, and you can see for Tuesday, heavy rain pushing back in with a bit of snow over the higher ground, and then again just bouts of precipitation. Again, I wouldn't take these too literally yet, especially the timings, as these will change very subtly, but you can see it's very unsettled through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and into Thursday as well, with more batches of heavy precipitation, thicker cloud, and up and down temperatures. Now, if we do put on those max temperatures, you can see this afternoon temperatures widely around the freezing mark across Scotland, but 12 or 13 degrees in the far south. So big temperature contrast. And again, this will change, but this is the general setup over the course of the next few days. As we head into Sunday, very cold still over Scotland, but milder in the south. And by Sunday afternoon, still 10, 12 degrees in the south, freezing in the north. As I said, as we head into Monday, cold air will take over for most, and many waking up on Monday morning will be a frost in northern and western areas. Perhaps even the southwest could see a frost as well. Through Monday afternoon, it's widely a cool day, average to below average conditions, around 4 to 7 degrees quite widely, even colder further northwards, and through Monday night to Tuesday, a widespread frost through eastern areas. However, precipitation does push in and much milder conditions will take over. Still could be cool over Scotland, but in the south 12, 13 degrees. But as we head towards the end of the week, it's likely cooler air is going to try to return from the northwest as those polar maritime air masses start to push back in. Now, if you go to the GFS and have a look at those air masses over the course of the next few weeks, you can see low pressure involved at the moment, but a brief ridge of higher pressure built in for Monday and Tuesday. But as we head towards Wednesday time, look at that big low pressure running in off the Atlantic, and then eventually we get a huge low pressure system by next Friday, Saturday, with a long-fetched northwesterly wind coming all the way from Greenland and northern Canada that pulls in some really quite cold air. Again, it's nothing ridiculously cold. The dew points will be around freezing, maybe slightly above for many areas, many low-lying areas, because of course this very cold air does get moderated significantly towards the surface. But quite a cold polar maritime air mass. We stay relatively cold all the way until early next week. So quite a cool spell there of a few days of proper polar maritime air. And you wouldn't even be surprised to see many areas getting well below average and wintry precipitation coming quite widespread if we saw that sort of pattern. Again, subtle shifts in positioning of low pressures could make quite a big difference because, again, that's not caused by any blocking. It's a bit of Atlantic ridging and a very strong low pressure dragging very cold air out of the Arctic. So we'll have to see, but majority of the ensemble members and operational runs do have this sort of long-fetched northwesterly and quite cold air pushing in for a time. Beyond that, though, we see high pressure topple and we go to another westerly flow, initially southwesterly, but we could see cooler air return once again with a bit more ridging. Definitely seeing a sign of that from the GFS today, with a bit more Atlantic ridging. You see initially there, come next Monday, Tuesday, and then maybe another brief ridge there the week after. So could be a sign of the Atlantic starting to become more amplified, but again, we'll have to see more consistency from this. Now, again, I did mention the sun stratospheric warming potential. If we do go to the Northern Hemisphere view and look at 384 hours, you can see huge sun stratospheric warming. If you do want to see how that does potentially come about, do check out that YouTube short I put out earlier. But yeah, got to keep all eyes on this, as this could really stir up the pot for the end of January and early February. If you look at the GM now, and you can see how that does compare. Again, a southwesterly flow at the moment, but trending more westerly early into the middle of next week. And then we see that long-fetched northwesterly as we head towards next weekend. Quite cold air coming in from the northwest, originated from Greenland and northern Canada. You can see the -5 line getting mixed up in there. Pretty chilly conditions and staying pretty cold all the way to day 10. Again, the -5 isotherm gets in, but of course it's highly moderated towards the surface. Again, if we go to the United Kingdom, look, put on those dew points, they're around freezing or slightly above. Again, if this was from northeasterly, you'd expect it widely below freezing, and it's just because it's picked up more moisture through the North Atlantic, giving rise to those dew points. And again, look at the 2 metre temperatures, it's cold, low single digits, but this is at midnight, and if this was from the northeasterly, you'd expect it to be below freezing, but it's simply because it's coming in from the northwest. Yes, cold air aloft, but towards the surface, cooler than average, but not ridiculously cold because it's getting moderated by generally warm sea surface temperatures. So yeah, turning colder in the longer term towards that sort of day 5 to day 10 range, but nothing ridiculously cold at this stage. If we look at the ECMWF, again, a westerly flow at the moment, staying very unsettled into the longer term, and then we get that long fetch northwesterly in the longer term, but eventually a low pressure does develop to the southern edge of it, and again, depending on its positioning, it could give some wintry precipitation or significant wintry precipitation for some in the north, but on this run, that cold air does come in from that northwesterly before getting pushed away. So, got to keep an eye on that, of course. Does generally mean we do think in the sort of mid-range it's going to turn colder than average, but nothing ridiculously cold, a degree or two probably below average. Winter precipitation in the north, and especially over higher ground, but not exclusively. Could be seeing frosts in places as well, and there could be a widespread wintry shower risk, but we'll just have to see how it does develop. Also, got to keep an eye on the Arctic, because blocking does look likely it's likely to return, or at least higher pressure returning over the Arctic. Again, that could spice things up for the second half of January, or from the middle of January onwards. So yeah, January definitely does look like a very interesting month coming up. Do I think it will be completely zonal? No. Will there be zonal westerly stormy conditions within it? Yes, definitely. But I do definitely think there is the potential for seeing a wide range of conditions, just how December has gone. But the last 2 weeks has been pretty zonal and westerly and mild, but the first 2 weeks were bitterly cold. I think we could see something similar to that, but roles reversed. Perhaps a mild or generally zonal first 2 weeks. Could be seeing cold weather as we're probably going to see towards the end of next week, with a northwesterly. But I do think there is real potential for the second half of January, whether it is the AO trending more negative, the MJO pushing into phases 7 and 8, which could encourage the NAO to go negative as well. That would set up colder weather, or the potential for colder weather. And then, of course, we've got sudden stratospheric warming on the cards as well, which may not directly affect most of January, but it could affect the last week or so, and then especially into February, could make a big impact. So we will have to see. Definitely does not look like a traditional flat westerly conditions, very stormy, no signs of anything cold. It is like that at the moment, generally westerly, but there are definitely hints in the longer term, or even mid-term now, of something colder potentially arriving, or at least a change from these sort of conditions. If we do finish by looking at the ensemble members, you can see they have trended colder in the sort of mid to longer range. Yes, the next sort of 5 or 6 days generally average to above average, but come 5th, 6th of January, it's going very unsettled, but most of the time we're below average by a degree or two, and quite a few of the ensemble members do peak towards that -5 region. Again, it won't produce anything majorly cold because it's probably coming from the north or northwest, and again temporary sort of air masses with a long sea track, so towards the surface it's significantly moderated, but it still would be cold, probably 3, 4, 5 degrees in the day, around freezing at night, with the potential for wintriness widely in the north and over higher ground especially, but even in the south we can see snow from these sort of polar maritime air masses as well, but nothing significant, just perhaps some wintry showers. So yeah, longer term, colder, and staying very unsettled as well. See the 2 meter temperatures trending towards that sort of 5, 6, 7 degrees in the day, around 1 or 2 at night. Again, the overnight temperatures always not particularly accurate from the GFS ensemble members. And you can see it from the dew point how, yes, it's quite a cold air mass, but dew points generally around freezing or just above freezing because it's coming from the northwest. But there are some snow depth spikes appearing. But again, these are sort of a week or 2 away, so got to keep an eye on what happens with that. And if we do compare it to the ECMWF ensemble members, the midnight run, very similar. Perhaps slightly more above average, around that sort of 6th to 8th of January point, but eventually trending towards average and pretty much tracking average in the longer term. So not quite as cold from the GFS, from the ECMWF as is from the GFS, but definitely still signs of it trending cooler, but staying very unsettled, with the longer term signal perhaps for higher pressure to start returning in the form of either blocking or Atlantic ridging, or of course, as we head towards the end of January, this impacts from the potential warming in the stratosphere, or even a proper sudden stratospheric warming. But of course, we'll have to see how it does play out. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you stay safe out there the next few days as we end the year. Got a lot of snow around in Scotland. We've got a lot of rain around as well, and there's windy conditions as well. Got no warnings in force, but even 30, 40 mile gusty winds could cause some issues, especially doing something like fireworks outside. So do take the necessary precautions, and I hope everyone has had a good year, and I'll see you again for another video in 2023.